It is an ongoing struggle in D.C. How do you keep your kids safe and out of trouble? Families are sounding the alarm now that supposedly safe spaces still bring their kids too close to violence.
But we've also seen a troubling trend of large groups of kids getting into fights and even assaulting officers. We have team coverage tonight. Josh Chapin is in Navy Yard, where there are renewed concerns about violence in that neighborhood.
But we're going to go first to Felicia Ashley. She's over at the Wilson building. Felicia, D.C. Council's making some last-minute changes right now to a divisive youth curfew bill.
Yes, they did. I mean, there were some moments where it was contentious, some back and forth, which has been happening now for some months. But just moments before the official vote on the permanent version of this curfew bill, multiple council members introduced amendments, changes, and additions to this bill, including Councilwoman Brianne Nadeau. One of those changes included one part where there will be an expiration date for this permanent curfew. So you hear the word permanent, you think this curfew is going to last forever, but will actually expire in 2028. And council says that will give them an opportunity to reevaluate and also see the impacts. The next change is that a juvenile cannot be taken to the youth detention center or police station just for breaking curfew. However, that doesn't apply if they commit a crime. Council members in support of this said children don't need to be introduced to the criminal system unnecessarily. They say they're trying to avoid as much harm as possible. Council members against this were Christina Henderson, Anita Bonds, Wendell Felder, Brooke Pinto, Matthew Fruman, and Chairman Phil Mendelson. I spoke to Councilwoman Brianne Nadeau, who introduced the changes to the bill just yesterday.
I don't support the expansion of the curfew, but to me it's very important that if it's going to go into effect, we do the least amount of harm. The First Amendment creates a sunset in 2028, which allows our government to implement all the programs that we've been talking about that we think are needed to actually support youth and get them the services that they need rather than punishing them.
I sat in on a breakfast council members had before the vote. They stated they have been under pressure to vote a certain way by other city leaders because of the federal presence and concerns of how the federal government would react to their decisions. Councilwoman Brooke Pinto, who introduced the expanded curfew law, said she is concerned about the federal response when they see large teens gathering.
We continue to make sure that everybody can be safe, and that is what I'll continue to share with those in the federal government who are seeing these large gatherings and threatening more aggressive response, which would not be appropriate or helpful to anyone.
Councilman Zachary Parker also introduced an amendment in addition to the curfew bill just moments before the vote as well. Now, his amendment would require the Department of Parks and Recreation to hold at least 3 to 4 programs over the weekends for teens. Now, that was actually pulled out right before the vote because there were some questions about funding. For now, back to you.
All right, so Felicia, the council passed permanent legislation for the curfew. When will it start to actually get implemented? When do we see these changes?
So this is where it gets interesting because they were able to come together, vote, get the majority vote to pass this permanent legislation for the curfew, but they were not able to figure it out for the emergency, the temporary version. So this permanent legislation is expected to hit the ground, be in effect around August because it still needs the mayor's signature, then of course go through the congressional review. That means there's a gap between now and August, right, with the curfew. But because council did not pass that emergency legislation, right now it appears there will not be a curfew for most of the summer, which has been essentially against the point of why they've been voted that it's needed. For now, reporting live from the Wilson building, Felicia Ashley, 7 News.